Now we're diving into the mind of a storyteller who doesn't just write, he evokes, he questions, and he challenges. Patrick Graham is a Liverpool based poet, writer, actor, and workshop facilitator of Jamaican heritage and Liverpool born black, and the man behind Blackout Productions. His work spans poetry, creative writing, and drama, and each piece rooted deeply into the black diaspora experience and the human condition. Now, whether he's working with children or adults, Patrick's words carry weight and wisdom. From immigration, advising to journalism, Patrick has lived many lives and each one feeds his craft. So, whether you love a good story or you're just curious about the power of a creative expression in community spaces, you are in for a treat. Welcome to the studio, Patrick.
Welcome, welcome. It's always a pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me.
You know what? I can't. Obviously we go way back. However, storytelling. What was your first ever poem, if you can remember, or piece of writing that made you think, you know what, I've got something here?
My first ever poem I wrote was about 24 years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And it was called, actually, I was watching the news and George Bush made a statement, and from that it was bouncing around in my head for half an hour, and then I just sat and write a poem because he was saying we're going to wage a war on terror, and I was thinking, well, wow, what does that even mean? So I wrote a poem called War or Terror, and that was my first poem that I wrote properly.
So your new book, it asks who, what, where, when, why. What questions do you find yourself constantly asking in your work and just everyday life?
Well, the whole concept of that who, what, when, where, why in the title is because life is full of them questions, and this book explores in some ways the human condition, the human psyche, you know what I mean? And for me, I want, after this interview, to leave people wanting answers to that who, what, when, where, why, and after reading each story also to possibly get answers, you know what I mean? As I say in the introduction, you may get an answer you want, you may get an answer you don't want, you may get the answer you need, and ultimately it's for someone to use their conscience to find the answer, or their imagination. You know what I mean? Because it questions things, simple things from forgiveness, consequence, all these different issues the stories tackle, and they're all in some ways unrelated. You know what I mean? There's no real connection, bar there is three stories that are some way connected in a way, but generally they're not connected, and they're set in all different types of time periods.
Was there any poems that you left out?
Any
poems that you left out in the book?
Well, out of the story, there's 10 stories in the book, yeah, and 7 of them are based on a prompt, and some was simply a photograph I looked at and started writing, and just with a flow of consciousness, I don't even know what you could call it, I just created stories, which when I finished was like, hold on, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Why did I write that? Why would I write that? How did I write that? And that's, as I've, because, I started these stories a few years back during lockdown, during a writing course, because as a writer, I've been writing for a number of years, but I'd say I was in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And thanks to an organisation who put them pieces together for me in writing classes that I attended, Writing on the Wall, our own Writing on the Wall, attended several of their writing classes, and one in lockdown in particular. And after that, it seemed to construct me as a writer. It put my pieces together and I was assembled. And from there, you're always learning. You never stop learning your craft.
But it feels like you've gone on this spiritual journey. Does it feel like that for you?
Well, yeah, in a way, because at the time I went on this writing course in 2020 during lockdown. There'd been a tragedy within, not personally to me, but, within like the family type of thing. And I wasn't going to do the writing course because it was beginning the next day. I missed the first session. It was 2 days a week for a couple of hours. And then in the end, I thought, you know what? I need to escape from the thoughts that I'm going through. So by plunging fully into the writing, that allowed me that escape, because writing, there's a saying, I might be getting this wrong, but there's a meme that I read where it says writing takes you places. Reading takes you places where you don't have to be where you are to stop you from being where you are. Something along that lines was very profound, and I thought I really liked that. And writing does that for me as well. You know what I mean? It takes me places where I don't have to be, stay where I am.
Yeah.
And, you know, the imagination, it surprises people. It surprises me, as I said, because just about every story in this book, when I finished writing it, other than one, which was a number of years ago when I was on a writing course, where we had to come up with a story, and then you had directors and you had to pitch to see whose 5 stories were going to be made into like short films. This was a First Take a number of years ago, and one of them I got through to be able to have mine made into a short film. And then it was a film script the way it was written. It's the same story, but I put it into this book.
So does the book come under your production company, Blackout Productions?
Well, yeah, technically Blackout Productions. People always think it's a good production company because it says that.
Yeah.
I am Blackout Productions.
Yeah.
That is the way Prince had his symbol.
Yeah.
I have my symbol, my blacked out redacted symbol,
Yeah.
and that's what I class my performance name as, Blackout Productions. So that is me in that sense. But it was produced by me, obviously, yeah. So it does come under that me stroke production company, if people want to call it that. But I am Blackout Productions, that's what I'm saying.
Over the years, when you first started Blackout Productions, would you say, has it evolved? Has it become, for you, a bit of a movement rather than it's just a company?
Well, yeah, because Blackout Productions was started, if people know my logo, it is a redacted document.
Yeah.
There is a statement under there, and the 3 words left is Blackout Productions.
Yeah.
And just like any redacted document, no one has a clue what it really is about or what it says.
Yeah.
Because there's only 3 words from a statement of not that long, maybe about 35, 40 words long, and then 3 words were left enlarged, and the rest was redacted. People.
Do you know what those words are?
Oh, yeah, I know what they
Okay.
are. Yeah. People always ask me what they are, and I say, well, that's why it's redacted. You know what I mean? And then me, as a writer, a poet, a historian, I'm the contradiction to my logo, because although what's hidden under there, I reveal. So I reveal by sharing history facts, black history facts in particular, from the African, the diaspora, use poetry to convey bits of history or facts, or to challenge things, and and storytelling to not necessarily to challenge and to entertain, you know what I mean, and to educate as well, because that's, stories are age old, you know what I mean. As I say in the introduction, if I can just quote from it, as I say in the introduction, it says, life has many questions and answers. Over the ages, stories ask about consequences, poverty, consumerism, memories, betrayal, and more. My stories make us look at ourselves and at each other. In every question, is there an answer? Yes. Often more than one. Answers you don't want, ones you do, or one you fear. Maybe even the answer you need. So whatever answers you seek, you must always ask a question. My stories may give you an answer or leave you asking who, what, when, where, why.
And but why does it matter, Patrick? Why does it matter to you that people understand their history, people understand the society that they come from, how our society was even built? Why does it matter?
Well, it matters to me because to put it in like I'll say the simple term, but to put it in like a term people can understand. When life is a journey, when anyone's going on a journey, if you don't know where you start, how do you know where you're going? And to me, that's what it's about, knowing where you've come from to know where you're going.
Yeah.
And that's why history is important for people to understand where they began, to know where they are now and where they want to get to or need to go to.
And I mean, you've touched on it slightly, but why should people get your book, and what do you want them to get from it?
Well, what I want them to get from it is this again, because as I say, story, and the actual title is Stories That Make You Ask Quiz, Quid, Quando, Quare, Ube and Qua. And people think, well, what's that? And that is Latin for who, what, when, where, why. And that's part of the intrigue, the mystery. The title is like, well, what does that mean? And then underneath it's clarified who, what, when, where, why, and the stories do that to people. So it's, as I said, it's stories that make you ask who, what, when, where, why, inquire into people's desires, needs, thoughts, consequences, and more. Out of the questions you may ask, more importantly, what answer will you get? Let your conscience or your imagination decide, because some people might think, oh my God, that's me.
Yeah.
When they read this story, some may not. You know what I mean? So it's about let your conscience or your imagination decide the answer. But ultimately, I want people to come up with their own answers as to who, what, when, where, why, without me giving them that. Because each story does have an underlying meaning in there somewhere, and it might have more than one. It might be several layers to that, and people might interpret them slightly differently depending on their circumstances, their approaches. But they're all got meanings in there somewhere. So it's for me, it's quite deep like that. You know what I mean? And like I said, I've wrote 7 of them off a prompt. As soon as I've looked at a picture or had a prompt of one word or a sentence, I've started writing. And stream of consciousness, I don't know where it's going, I just started writing. Sometimes with the prompt first word, sometimes just the first thing that comes into my head. And then after, especially in workshops, you might only have 5-10 minutes. You just write, and you get down what you get. You share it, read it back, get a feedback, and then obviously in your own time you go away and polish it. You know what I mean? It's to me, writing is an art. It's a sculpture. You know what I mean? You chip away at it, you get a basic outline, and then you fine tune it by, then you got to sand it down and smooth it. That's what it is. And writing is a team sport. If you want to look at it as a sport, it's a team sport, because I thrive off being in a writing group, because I will write regardless, but not as much. And to me, to be in a writing group is almost like a metaphorical kick up the backside to keep writing.
I totally get it.
And you get inspiration, you get motivation, you share, you get feedback. Each one teach one. You know what I mean? You go there to learn, you go there to teach, you go there to listen. But writing groups, I thrive off them. They're my heartbeat.
So we've run out of time, but we can't let you go without you reading a poem. But before you do that, where can we buy your book?
Well, it's available on Amazon, and although they haven't stocked it yet, I've been speaking with local bookshop on Bowl Street, News from Nowhere, and also still out of print books on Smithdown Road, which is facing the Mystery Park.
So what poem are you going to read for us?
Well, it's a short story. I'll be reading an extract of the beginning. It's called Severed. So it's not starting exactly from the beginning. I've missed a couple paragraphs out, but it goes like this. As I stagger along, I can hear the odd sound of singing of Christmas songs. They're coming from the houses that line either side of the street. Coal fires that warm the families inside send smoke waltzing out of the chimneys. There's a faint smell of cakes and cooking in the air. This gives me a comforting but in some ways strange feeling. I should be home with my family, watching my children's faces, filled with excitement as they open the presents. I say to myself, I really don't know why I'm missing such a pleasing sight. We don't have much money, and it's difficult to buy gifts for the children since losing the little work I had. Although my wife would never admit it, I know she's not happy. It was my own fault I lost the job, so much so that we can no longer afford to buy each other anything. My wife takes secretarial work from time to time with a good doctor, which has increased of late. We rent 2 rooms on the 3rd floor from him. The doctor lives in the basement rooms where he also works. She's incredible, makes so many sacrifices just to buy children basic things, so they have at least one present to open at Christmas and birthdays. I don't know how she does it. I'm sure it upsets her. She always says, it's okay, things will soon change for the better, with more money to spend on basics for our children and even myself. I don't mind doing without, as being with my family for me is the greatest gift of all. Unsure how long I've been walking, I stumble into the park, which is quite some distance from where we live. The snow is now falling in sheets. It's sticking to the grass, to the cobbled walkway, and on the sides of oak trees and their almost naked branches. The odd golden leaf clings onto them. They refuse to give up their lives before they inevitably fall with the weight of the snow. I've walked these pathways many a times as they meander through the park. I've never seen snowfall like this before. Snowflakes are much bigger than I thought they could ever be. The sheets of snow soon become thick blankets. I can barely see 2 yards in front of me. I rub my nose with my right arm as the snow melts on touching it, giving me a tickling sensation. Funny, I can barely feel the coldness despite being dressed in a sleeveless gown and walking in my bare feet. Taking off my cap lets the snowflakes settle on my head, which slowly melt. They make waterfalls that flow around my ears and stream down my neck. Reminds me of skipping through the rain as a child, which always received an immediate scolding from my parents to put my cap back on. Having been plodding along for some time, I stopped. I looked behind and I could just about make out my last 2 or 3 footprints as they disappeared almost in an instant. However, I can see the blood that drips from my severed left arm, which from the elbow down is missing.
That's amazing. Patrick, thank you so much. And we cannot wait to see how... Well, we need to catch up again because that book is so good. So thank you very much. It's in Amazon for those listening in Northwest.
Yeah, it's in Amazon, and I'll be at Granby Market tomorrow. The first Saturday of every month, so I'm there most months. Check me out on social media on Instagram, Blackout Productions, _out_productions, to find further information where it'll be stocked.
Thank you.
Thank you.